We are starting now. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to this session titled Talk of the Town City Leaders on Fixing the Food Waste Puzzle. In this session, we will be exploring city level solutions to address the food waste challenge at the intersection of urban governance, behavior change, and circular economy. To set the tone for this discussion, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Loken Thakkar, Coordinator of State Knowledge Management Center on Climate Change, Department of Environment, Government of Madhya Pradesh. Mr. Thakkar has been working in the area of environment, biodiversity, climate change, and sustainable development over the last 3 decades. We are honored to have you with us today. Over to you, Mr. Thakkar.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to this second session of this morning after this break. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to World Resource Institute India, WRI India, for organizing this very important program event on food loss and food waste, and also inviting me to share some of my thoughts. And thank you, WRI, also making EPCO, our State Knowledge Center on Climate Change, a partner in this process. Over last year and a half, we have been working with WRI, organizing some workshops at city levels to raise awareness about food loss and food waste. And there has been a very remarkable footfall and also interest that we have been able to generate in Madhya Pradesh, and especially in cities where we have organized these workshops. I come from a government perspective. I'm leading the Climate Change Knowledge Center in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So my perspective and my background is more government and climate change. But I understand, and I really want to emphasize this point, that food loss and food waste should not only be looked at from climate change perspective. It is a larger context within which we need to look at, because this is a trend these days that everything is linked to carbon, be it forest or be it wetlands or be anything, that we suddenly link it how much carbon it is going to sort of sequester or sort of mitigate. But on one side, it's good that we look at from greenhouse gas mitigation point of view. But I think important thing is that we need to look at, as far as the food loss and food waste is concerned, we need to look at from a larger perspective, from nutrition, from other social perspectives also. I know that food loss and food waste is a institutional, governance, behavioral, technology, science, all these things are involved. And if we need to really sort of address these problems, we need to look at and find solutions from all these angles. What are the policy ramifications are needed? What kind of technology? And over yesterday and today, we have seen that how each and every stakeholder is coming up with lot of solutions. But I would just want to emphasize on one point, that there is a larger paradigm shift happening, and especially in lifestyle, when it comes to food waste. Food loss is more sort of issue which is institutional, policy, not as individual, but food waste is something which is very individualistic or maybe institutional. And I can do something about it, but maybe perhaps as an individual, I may not be able to contribute much as far as the food waste is concerned. I look at policy solutions, I look at technology solutions, I look at some institutional solutions. India is, as you know, is fast urbanizing. and our lifestyle is changing. Um, in the age of Blinkits and Zomato, we don't store foods. Uh, where I live in my city in Bhopal, and I live in the heart of the city, when I reach my office every time, I find lots of trolleys, and farmers are selling their crops directly on the roads. They are selling onions, they are selling garlic, they are selling wheat. This is something very interesting to me. I mean, it's something like a manufacturer is also doing the retailing, which is in industrial context, it is not acceptable. But in agriculture context, I am seeing that farmers are forced to sell their products on the streets. Onions, maybe about 20 rupees a kg, and garlic is about 100 rupees a kg, which in the upmarket, if you go to any Reliance or any other, shop, you will buy the same garlic to about 400 rupees a kg. So this is a very important thing that farmers are now sort of forced to look at. And they have to sell their produce, they have to sell their crop on their own. So this is a very difficult time. I recall that when I started my service, we used to get what we call the grain advance, a grain loan. Government used to give us 1,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees without any interest to purchase my annual, grain requirement. These days, nobody buys grains for its annual requirement. We don't buy wheat anymore. We don't buy we simply purchase flour, 2 kg, 3 kg flour. I mean, sometimes people don't even purchase flour, they just order rotis. So this is a paradigm shift that is happening. And that is why there is too much of, grain available in the market. Otherwise, come the season of wheat harvesting and everybody would buy a huge amount of, wheat, or all the condiments, all the, oils and sugar and everything, they would stock it for about 6 months, maybe a year. These days, the entire paradigm is changing. And therefore, I think it's just not the government solution. How much government can procure? Even if it procures, where to store? We have a huge challenge in Madhya Pradesh. You go these days on these streets, on any street you go, and you will find that huge stock of wheat is under the rains, open in the sky. There's no systematic, despite having huge, network of warehouses, still huge amount of wheat is still in the open sky, decaying in the, rains. So this is a challenge that we need to look at. As I said, we had a lot of, interactions and workshop with WRI, understanding the city level issues. So Indore is one such example, and my colleague Samir is on panel, he would talk about the Indore story. So I won't talk much about Indore, but Indore is what we call as Prime Minister himself calls it, Indore नहीं है, एक दौर है. तो वो दौर किसका है? किस तरफ हमारे ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर इशारा कर रहे हैं? वो दौर क्या है? मुझे लगता है कि that what he is indicating is Indore is moving towards sustainability in waste management. 8th time in the row, Indore has won this award of the cleanest city of the country. But still, allow me to say this thing, that Indore, despite having this such a 8 years success story, and I understand because I come from that area, if not local of Indore, but I'm living in Indore, going Indore every month. I've seen there is a huge behavioral change in people's psyche as far as waste management is concerned. But to me, this is not the real indicator. The real indicator is, and we think that, sitting here in panel, I've heard that we are bringing circularity in waste management and food loss and food waste. I think it's very sort of myopic way of looking at, are we actually bringing any circularity? To me, it's still a linear model. The model which I think, somebody may not even like it, but allow me to say this, that we consume more, we produce more waste, we collect more waste, we dispose more waste, and we manage more waste. Is this a circularity? This is not. To me, a real indicator for Indore or for any other city would be that are we able to reduce our per capita waste, including food waste? Are we able to reduce waste from our plate? Are we finishing our platter? If that is not happening, that challenge still remains. And how long this hugely intensive, incentive-based, financially incentive-based waste management model, I mean, I don't know how long will it exist and survive. So these are some of the issues that we look at, should look at, and we must, so I think, talk about. Just to finish my thoughts, I mean, this morning Mr. Jha was talking about, and I think he fell short of, even describing what he started, but I think he didn't discuss slightly in details. I think in all these discussions, we are missing one thing, that is faith and belief. When it comes to food loss and food waste, I think even if we don't want to discuss, let's understand and let's know that how rich Indian culture has been as far as the food is concerned. There's a huge plethora of, details lying in our scriptures. And I think that when you look at food waste, especially, there is much we can sort of achieve using our faith and belief systems. So I think we should not shy away from this also. We should see how can we capitalize on our cultural ethos and belief systems that we had. मुझे याद है और मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे हैं हमारे इंडिया में जो सिर्फ उतना ही खाते हैं जितना उनकी हाथ में आता है. उसको करपात्री बोलते हैं, करपात्री. They eat only as much as their palms can receive. And those who eat in their platter, they finish each and every particle. पानी डाल करके उस प्लेट को पीते हैं. तो हम उस, if we come from that kind of a background, and now we are discussing how can we reduce food loss and food waste, and how can we reduce food waste from our platter. Huge some kind of gap in our systems and our practice. I just want to finish that today is 6th August, and if we recall that today was the day 8 years before America had dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And today, if we look at, people are still dying of hunger, starving in Gaza or in any other countries. And we are discussing here how to reduce food loss and food waste. This is the dichotomy. This is the challenge that the humanity has. And I think with collective response, with each and everybody involved, using our culture and ethos and faith and belief, I think we can actually find solutions. I'm very optimistic. As far as food waste is concerned, food loss is a larger systemic issue where we need many interventions, many stakeholders. But for food waste, I think things are something which we can really change, bringing change in our lifestyles, and we can achieve this target. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thakkar, for your insightful keynote and setting the context ahead. I would now introduce our distinguished panel of speakers and moderators for this session. I would like to invite our moderator for this session, Dr. Anar Bhatt, Program Manager, Food, Land and Water, WRI India. I would like to introduce and invite our speaker on the stage, Dr. Sameer Sharma, co-founder of Swaha, an IIT Indore incubated startup for sustainability and solid waste management. He is also known as the Startup Man of India for his innovative contributions to environmental conservation. Ms. Sobha Raghavan, CEO Saha Zero Waste. She strategizes the business around waste and circular economy to ensure growth and scale-up of niche industry. Then we have Dr. Ruby Makhiza. Dr. Ruby Makhiza is a sustainability advocate and founder of Why Waste Wednesdays Foundation. She is a two-time TEDx speaker and recipient of Forbes We Serve India Award 2025. We have Ms. Vandana Singh, CEO of Food Security Foundation India, India Food Banking Network. Vandana has been leading a national network of 63 food banks to address hunger, malnutrition, food waste, and climate change in India. Ms. Sumana Narayan, Deputy Director, Program Gaia Asia Pacific. Sumana is an ecologist by training with experience across sustainability sectors including ecology, journalism, mobility, and zero waste. We have Ms. Vidvata Sharma, Regional Associate at Global Methane Hub. Vidvata works with the Asia team supporting regional strategies to reduce methane emissions across key sectors. Welcome everyone. I now hand it over to Dr. Bhatt to take the panel discussion forward. There will be 2 rounds of questions and each speaker will have 2 minutes to respond. Over to you, Anar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mimansha. EPCO and WRI India's city-level dialogues, as Mr. Thakkar had highlighted, emphasizes on how city-level leadership is important in driving meaningful change. And especially when we are talking about this complicated problem of food waste, there are many layers to it. And as in our discussion, hopefully we'll be able to bring out the many different pieces of this puzzle. So, and as Mimansha has laid out, we do have a time limit to it, and we have so many diverse views that we want to bring to the table. So we'll have Aman who will flag at 2 minutes when our time is up, and then maybe we can come back to the reflections in the second round. So let's start with you, Dr. Makhija. And given your amazing work in influencing behavior shift, if you could share your reflections on what are the core behavior change strategies and participation incentives that enabled zero food waste transition in communities that you would have worked with. What made them change their behavior?
Thank you so much. So before we talk about incentives, I think what is most important is how you engage with them, how you actually are able to establish that connect with people, with stakeholders, and push waste as such, or water or air or whatever issues we have, push it up on their priority list. So here, and also it also depends on the type of stakeholders you are engaging with. So considering colony level or a citizen level or a resident level intervention, I think we realized first, as Dr. Thakkar mentioned, that it's very important to kind of bring in the ethos and the faith and the trust and of people. So that we were already in that position where our colony residents had laid their trust in us. So that was the biggest thing I would say. Apart from that, I think we moved most of our, I wouldn't say awareness, but awareness to action strategies through children. So we gave each child 4 households, and you can imagine they are not receptive to us, but to children they are very, very receptive. And at the same time, children as such are very, very receptive to whatever you teach them. They're very adaptive. So that was something. Plus, we had a one-on-one broadcast system with the residents. So I think somewhere we were already feeding them all of those things one-on-one, which I think was required to sensitize them. And then the second part is giving them solutions. So for example, specific to food waste, a lot of people understand and realize that, and especially in the era of Zomato and Swiggy and all, there's so much which comes on your plate that is actually not required. So we brought in a happy fridge with support from Zomato, and we placed it right at the entry gate, that in case you feel that you have extra or spare, please pack it up and put it in the fridge, label it with the date and time so that somebody else is able to. So somewhere that mindful consumption was something that we've really worked very, very hard with. And I think through various media, as I said, children was one, senior citizen programs was another. Then we brought in Nukkad Nataks, we brought in, and of course, recognition was something that worked. As you said, incentive for children, each and every of their effort, each and every of their signature campaign, campaign or a door-to-door visit or a conversation or a debate. We used everything, and at the end of everything, they were acknowledged, they were recognized, and they were projected as heroes. So I think somewhere you really need to bring in the right set of strategies for the right set of stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Makijan. That's really interesting how you've been able to engage with children. And when we're talking about households, within households, we're not thinking about what are the different groups, right? Like there are women, men, children, a typical household. But children would be a good way to engage even the next generation while we inculcate these values in them. That's very well said. Now, moving to Indore's experience, when we're talking about, how do we, and Indore has done very well in terms of course, waste management in general. And when we are talking about food waste specifically, my question is to Dr. Sharma. If you could share, how do you ensure consistent compliance? So community acceptance would be one factor, and how do we go about ensuring that waste does not end in landfill? And when we are building on Dr. Makhija's points on behavior shifts and how do we engage with community, how do you ensure compliance where it's much more advanced in a city like Indore?
Sure, thank you so much. And continue to the same subject, as this question is related to Indore city itself. So I'll be very specific that how did we do in Indore. So a perfect and very well-planned IEC has been planned by the municipal corporation and other stakeholders. And this IEC campaign was implemented with enforcement and solutions. So this was a combination and you can say a fusion or a very well-planned action plan for the city. So when they planned the IEC with the bulk waste generators, residential welfare associations or institutions, canteens, hotel, hospitality, other sectors. So they have planned in such a manner that not only a micro level capacity building should be done for them first. Secondly, what they did is they have started putting some rewards and some penalties as well. Third thing, they have given them multiple solutions that how to handle the waste or how to dispose it scientifically so that it will not go to the landfills. So all these three things, they worked together. Then Swaha came into picture with a very innovative solution as well, that we have launched our mobile waste processing and collection vehicle in the city first time in 2017, and which is a now innovative and awarded solution as well. And we specifically targeted bulk waste generators, residential welfare associations, and events. Specifically zero waste to landfill events we started from Indore. And you would not believe, there is one single fact I would like to mention over here, that in India, every year 1.125 crores wedding functions they normally organize. In Indore specifically, 11,000 weddings every season of 3 months. So it gives around 5,000 to 6,000 tons of waste every year extra to our infrastructure. So we came as, we took it as a business opportunity and challenge both. And we got a help from the administrative system called municipal corporation, as well as the hotel associations, means the public. So we all three together come up with a solution, and we handled it in a very successful business-oriented and circular economy way. So basically, once you do a very good kind of a capacity building, which is helping them to being a better citizen, secondly, it is rewarding as well, and penalty is also one of the part. And third thing, when it comes to a responsibility that Indore is known for the cleanliness. Now every citizen is responsible and they are taking it as a challenge, or I would say as it's a very good social engineering strategy actually planned by a municipal corporation. So now उनका ऐसा मानना है कि अगर हमने स्वच्छता नहीं की तो हम इंदौर का नाम खराब कर रहे हैं. तो ये उनके लिए अब एक मजबूरी भी है और उनके लिए एक गर्व का विषय भी है. So we have to play in such a way. तो I am very much convinced with जैसा माखीजा मैम ने बताया कि you have to do the right kind of strategy. So इनके साथ इनोवेशन, टेक्नोलॉजी, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट प्लेयर, जब ये सारे इकट्ठे हुए, सो ये जितना भी वेस्ट कलेक्शन होने लगा, वी टुक इट ऑन आवर ओन वैन्स एंड देन वी स्टार्टेड processing at our own plants. So the entire diversion from landfill to the processing plant, and we converted it to a very successful, profitable business called waste to energy. So I think this was the major, I would say, आप इससे सीख सकते हैं कि इंदौर कैसे इसमें आगे बढ़ा. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Very well said. And building on, Dr. Makija's points on how rewards and recognition are used at residential welfare association, and how this can be scaled at a city level, and the messaging through IC campaigns, how that has been imbibed in the citizens, and it has sort of become an identity for Indauris to be a clean city. So that's a quite of journey and learning drawing from each of these. And moving to Bangalore now after Indore, Ms. Raghavan, could you share, given your work leading Sahas Zero Waste, which components of this system, technical, behavioral, infrastructural, have been most pivotal in reducing food waste? So there are many parts to it. Which one do you think has been most pivotal, if one?
Yeah, thanks. I think this is, we need to build a systemic approach. Each of these components, behavioral change, technical infrastructure are interdependent. And even on behavior change, I think we have to start communicating that this is more a culture change. I mean, we don't belong to this culture. This is not our roots. We welcome modernization and convenience, but at the cost of what? At the cost of people and planet? No way. Right, so that behavior change has to hit at the heart. While all of the other discussions are so valid, we need to hit the heart rather than the head, and then we need to keep re-emphasizing on these basics. So behavior change, I would say, is very pivotal to the whole solution, because it starts with us as people polluting the environment. But it requires reinforcing training and engagement. As much as we can have modern things like gamifying and such things, we also need to go back to the roots and show how we have actually implemented that from centuries. But even if behavioral changes are going to be implemented through these engagements, there should be a leadership endorsement. We are particularly working with the bulk waste generators in a couple of cities, focusing on the corporates and tech parks and education institutes. So when there's a leadership endorsement, this legitimizes the effort of the shift that we expect to see. And technology is always going to be there. Today there's an innovation, tomorrow we will, I mean, data is so critical, it's implicit now, we don't have to discuss that. But of course, data gives us a lot of information where the reduction has to happen, recycling has to happen. Infrastructure is equally critical, because do you want to compost, do you want to gas it, do you want to use BSFL? All of these are all dependent on the demographic, the space, budget, etc., etc. But summarizing it, it is to build a systemic change, you need to build a vehicle that is solid and foolproof, which means if I have to call it like building a vehicle, the behavior change is the engine. It is the heart of the whole thing. As the entire impact that we wish to see is as powerful as the engine is. And the technical aspects are like the dashboard of the vehicle, where you see the efficiencies and other data parameters. And the infrastructure is like the road, right? So you have a smooth road, you can have a powerful engine, you can actually get optimized results. But if the infrastructure is pathetic, then you again have stumbling blocks, and even if the engine is good, you still have a problem. So they are interdependent, but the core is, of course, behavior change.
Thank you, Ms. Raghavan, for those reflections, and very well said. Even when we have technology, data, infrastructure, even if everything is there, if we've not changed the behavior, how do we move forward? So that's actually quite important. And also your emphasis on enabling leaders, which is very important for this kind of change. So while we talked about reducing food waste, and Mr. Thakkar really put it really well. We have come a long way backwards, from cleaning our plates by putting water and drinking it to actually throwing that in the bin. But now, the best solution is to reduce that waste. But now what if there are leftovers? So when it comes to donation, drawing on your experiences, Vandana, your work across Indian cities, could you share your reflections on what mechanisms, logistics, and stakeholder relationships are used for successful surplus rescue. So when we have, fit to eat surplus, so how do you monitor for safe redistribution?
I represent India Food Banking Network. We have food banks. These food banks are not-for-profit organizations which recover surplus food wherever they are in the supply chain. So currently we are recovering surplus food from the retail industry, the food industry. Whatever surplus packaged food they have, much before the best before date, they take it out from the distribution cycle and do not sell them anymore. Instead, they donate it to India Food Banking Network, the food banks, and we have sufficient time to distribute it to people in need, charitable hospitals, old age homes, homeless shelters, etc. We are also working with wholesale fresh produce mandis, where at the end of the day, whatever is left unsold, the fresh fruits and vegetables, that also, instead of going into landfills, we are able to recover it and again use it to feed people, improve their nutrition status also. As Mrs. Thakkar pointed out earlier, it's very unfortunate that, in this preferred use of food, the most important thing is that we should not let any food go waste. And if at all food is still being wasted, then it should be used for feeding people. And only then, when it becomes inedible, should you look at other options of composting or animal feed, etc. But the first option should be of not letting food go waste. And while we hear a lot of talk about, behavioral change is important, there's so many other initiatives, we are recovering surplus food, but I think, yes, since Mr. Thakkar spoke, I had a conversation with Mr. Dhingra also, you'll all agree that it's most important is to reduce this food waste. You can't keep going on producing food, like it almost amounts to that you buy 3 kg apples and before you enter your home, you throw away 1 kg. This is just not done, right? So what is it that can be done? I'd just like to bring your attention. For example, in France, they have come out with a legislation whereby the retail sector cannot bin their surplus at all. They cannot waste it. They have to timely remove it from the distribution, from the sales, and they need to donate it for feeding people in need. So there may be something we need to look at, legislation like this, where we, at the core itself, we prevent the food from going waste initially itself. But till that time, and even then there are other things. For example, in America and other countries, you have a Good Samaritan Act, which enables people to donate their surplus food. We are not actually dealing with cooked food, but we have spoken to a lot of people in the hospitality industry, the HoReCa, and we find that they are not ready to donate their surplus because of liability concerns. So we need something like a Good Samaritan Act, whereby anyone who donates food in good faith, good edible, safe food in good faith, then they cannot be held liable. So there are some policy issues like these, and of course drawing upon our culture and our past experience, whereby we were not allowed to waste any food on our plates. So this has to percolate, throughout the ecosystem, whereby everybody should be, activated around that food should not be wasted. Now, if the hotels or the caterer or at the wedding, if it's already built into their pricing that 10% of food waste hoega hi, but they have already built it into their pricing, so they're not concerned about it anymore. So some kind of penalties for that would be good. I'll take up any more questions later.
Thank you so much, Ms. Singh. Actually, this is very important. When we talk about Good Samaritan law, that is something often talked about, when we are thinking about reducing liability so that, more of these bulk waste generators, including HoReCa, can donate surplus food. And but there is not enough discussion on how do we prevent food from going into the bin, as you just shared the example from France. That would actually enable more and more ideas and alternative ways to manage that waste. Coming to Sumana, turning to your, drawing from your experiences leading Gaia's work, how has Gaia implemented redirecting food waste into composting, urban farming, or community agriculture? And that would in fact help in restoring soil health, reclaiming nutrients, and in a way it would help in catalyzing resilience of urban food systems. So once we cannot use that food, how do we prevent it still from going to the landfill?
Thank you. So let me first briefly say what Gaia is about, because we're actually a member-led global network. So our members are CSOs from across the world, and who are the people working on the ground at the grassroots level, connecting with communities, with ULBs, with other stakeholders to move things forward. So having said that, we support them as Gaia on a number of issues: advocacy, on policy development, on cross-learning. So we have a Zero Waste Academy, which a lot of our members contribute as well as participate in. And this is also open to people beyond the network. So having said that, a lot of our members across the world have actually, over the last decade or even more, been very focused on various aspects of the solid waste chain. So organics is a huge component for them, as well as, of course, plastics. So they work on plastic policy, reducing single-use plastics, all of those things. But focusing on organics, we've got a lot of grassroots work around ensuring source segregation, going back to those basics, which we now know as common sense and logical, but they've had to work a lot at the grassroots to bring that together. And there are some great examples, like in San Fernando in Philippines, where the city has come on board and partnered with our members to basically now reduce nearly 90% of their waste. They've stopped it from going to a landfill. So they compost all of their waste, they collect and compost. They've integrated waste workers and waste pickers into the system so that there's livelihood options for them and justice for them and hygiene and safety and recognition of the work they do, and then also dealt with all the other kinds of waste. So these are some of the things that they've been working on, and I think there are examples like in Kerala, across Kerala now. Recently the state government declared the entire state as zero waste, and a lot of that support also came from some of our members to work on the ground to build those. So it's been very much focused on organics broadly. The food waste part of it has now started becoming more and more prominent, and they're now focusing on saying, okay, how do we stop it from becoming waste in the first place? But for them, a lot of the work has been at that grassroots source segregation, ensuring that there's composting, there are options, developing different models. For example, again, in the Philippines, in Metro Manila, in one city within Metro Manila, they've also, have these model MRFs so that people can see how this can be done, and they have an urban garden within that, and then, how you can use your compost, how some of the organic waste can then just be, made into gas, and then the kitchen and the electricity needs of that MRF are met from that gas. So it becomes a bit more self-sufficient, and that MRF doesn't have to be an ugly piece of infrastructure. And this also speaks back to the community on, that this could, you don't have to have that NIMBY mindset when it comes to things like an MRF. So their MRFs are actually very pretty. When I first visited, I was like, wow, this is like a cute little garden in the middle of the city. And you're still processing plastics, PET bottles, whatnot, and then you have a little garden there which is maintained by the waste workers. So it's a nice little ecosystem. So setting up these pilots, scaling it up with the governments, covering the whole gamut of your solid waste has been really, our members' life work right now.
Thank you so much, Sumana, for this really insightful, experience. And how do we enable, waste workers who are really at the, dealing with waste hands-on, and how do we empower them or enable them with circular economy models, so to speak? And how do we scale such micro-level solutions so that we could have more of such innovations? And speaking of initiatives, this would be my next question is for Vidwata. If you could share, which are the various initiatives around food waste that are being supported by GMH in India. And while we spoke about a whole range here from Dr. Makhija to Sumana, so over to you.
Thanks, Sanar. So Global Methane Hub is a philanthropic effort, and all of our work is done through partners like the ones sitting on the stage and in this room. So first of all, a big shout out to everyone who's doing the work on the ground. In terms of our work on food waste, GMH approaches this at a systemic level. So what are the ecosystem shifts that are required overall in the food waste and waste management value chains, which can then be addressed through philanthropic funding or collaborative partnerships. So in India, our work on food waste is a small part of the larger work we're doing on waste management as a whole. But there's a lot that we have been doing, especially on preventing food waste from going to the landfills at the first place. So some of our levers that we work with are policy and regulation. So how do you support policymakers who want to act on food waste management in their ambitions? So we're working, several of our partners, including WRI India, is working with several city governments to enable mechanisms that can help those city governments, whether it's technical assistance or bringing in financial mechanisms. So that's something that we're doing. In tandem with that, we're also supporting through our partner NIUA a project preparation facility, which is the financing part of the puzzle. So while the project preparation facility is at a larger climate level under the waste sector, what it intends to do is create bankable projects. So for food waste management, for example, if a city government wants to address the food waste problem, but there's a financing gap, what kind of bankable project can we create at the city level to which financing can then be brought to? So this is a very critical gap that we faced in the ecosystem, and we thought this could be an important lever to address. The other thing, of course, that a lot of participants have mentioned is behavior change. So behavior change at both the society, at the consumer level, as well as at the bulk waste generator level is something that several of our partners are working on. We've done this through behavior change campaigns. That has been a big part of the work that we've done on ground. We've had pilots on what kinds of IEC material can actually work to change behavior in various consumer groups. So what works in Mumbai, for example, versus what works in Delhi could be different kinds of messaging, different cultural contexts. So that is something that we've addressed. And at the bulk waste generator level also, we're beginning some work, especially in the Himalayan region, to not just reduce food waste at the bulk waste generator level, but also to help them understand how that can be managed at site. So whether it's through anaerobic digesters or other technology options that are coming up. So yeah, that's like a broad gamut of work that we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vidwata. And I'm going to have a follow-up question to you in the second round, because that's very interesting on the, the range of initiatives that GMH is supporting. Moving to Dr. Makhija, you shared your experiences on working with households and bringing about behavior shifts. And you've worked a lot with residential welfare associations. So we wanted to understand, how do you structure collaborations with institutions, and local governments, ULBs? How do you structure those collaborations to implement, say, zero food waste events? Residential welfare associations in itself have so many events coming up, with so many cultural festivals around. How do you scale such community models? And what challenges or lessons have emerged from them? So,
Yeah.
over to you.
So, yes, of course. So, talking about government, so we work at 3 tiers. I would say the institutional with the urban local bodies, MCD, NDMC. Then at the grassroots, whether it is an RWA or even if it is an unstructured resident association there, and what can bridge the two. So that could be a CSR partner, that could be a college, eco club, that could also be a spiritual organization. So how we can bridge the gap. So that's a 3 tier that we follow. And urban local bodies specifically, I would say right now, because of Swachh Sarvekshan and Swachh Bharat mission, it's more of their agenda than ours too. So that's very, very encouraging. We've been receiving a great deal of support from all the urban local bodies that we've been working with. And so how we plan this is that we look at the event, talking specifically about the zero waste event, sit with the authorities, understand what the event is about, then draft the SOPs accordingly, then bring all the stakeholders on the single table, connect with each of them so that there's no gap. And then bring in strategies like, for example, I would say, in colonies it's still easier because the population is fixed and, maybe you've connected with them before or you still have an RWA connect there. Now talking about, we did 2 events rather at Rashtrapati Bhavan with a footfall of 1.5 lakhs. So now you can imagine there, it requires a different level of strategy altogether. We had about 20 college volunteers who were all over the place. Initially, we had a meeting with the authorities, understanding the event, connecting again with the caterer, with the housekeeping, with the tent guy, with everyone to understand where are the waste generation points and see how we can first reduce it. And if we can't reduce something, how we can actually channelize it, segregate it, and send it to the last disposal point. Then talking about people who were coming, visiting the premises. So there we had as I said, brigade of college volunteers who were spread all across. They went to vendors to educate them. They went to announcement sections, they went to the food courts, they went to the kitchen. So there were 2 who were placed only in the kitchen area. Then in the food court, there were some who were doing only announcement. Then there were some who were monitoring the bin. So there's no other strategy that would work. Then there were groups which were coming in the festival. There were school groups, there were college groups. So catching hold of them and then, making them sit and playing games on segregation with them. So it was a multi-level strategy that came in there. Also, when people know that they're being monitored or they're being watched, their behavior certainly is very, very civil, I would say. And which was the reason that bin monitoring was something that we hadn't thought of when we were planning this zero waste event. But eventually we came up with this, and then table to table announcement. So you were going table to table telling them, take only as much as you can eat. And then you reach the bin and there is a bin monitor who's watching as to what you're dropping and where you're dropping. So I think for a very, very dynamic event, it's a very different strategy. For a colony level, it's a different strategy, and weddings, it's a different strategy. So I think you need to understand the event first, then map your stakeholders and then strategize and see that there are no gaps. And instantly, as you were picking up all and the bins, how they were being emptied and where it was being taken, and then a vehicle specifically stationed so that there are strays around. So at least what is being put in the bin is immediately reaches the composting site. So I think there, and the challenge, coming to challenge, I won't call it a challenge. I think that was an opportunity that it's very important to kind of understand the floating population also apart from fixed population. So in such events, with the floating population, it was very encouraging to see that when people know that there is a system of waste management and we are being washed to what we are throwing where, I think it was very encouraging to see, because some of them came back the next day. And then they knew that, yes, again, this is not a short-term thing. So, and event after event after event, now these people have, the organizers, when they make zero waste as a part of their events, I think it becomes a culture. So I think it was pretty much encouraging.
Thank you. That's very well said, Dr. Makija. And especially, I wanted to also go back to your point where, already city leaders have to reduce waste because of regulation, and we are also changing behavior. So, looking at it from a very narrow lens of economics as well, like when incentives align, actors act. So that is also something that, we need to note. And another thing was integrating zero waste as an objective within the event itself. So, that should also be one of the outcome of the event, is there should not be any waste. So that mindset may also help everyone in working backwards to reducing what they are consuming, what they are wasting. So moving to Dr. Sharma, what lessons can other cities' systems learn from Swaha's stakeholder engagement? How it has integrated data, and how have various business models come up in response to reducing waste, because that has been a common goal citywide for various stakeholders to reduce waste. So if you could share some reflections.
Sure. Because it's a common exercise by various stakeholders. So the most important thing which we should learn from Indore or Swaha's perspective is that first, it has to be a very serious matter, and secondly, preserving or restoring your own cultural values is going to help you a lot. Like, we belongs to a country where Annam Raksham kind of principles are there in the society, and even in the events, like just now we have finished Amarnath Yatra. So वहाँ एक specific लंगर में होता है, उतना ही लो थाली में, जो व्यर्थ न जाए नाली में. So we work on the solution. Solid waste management is a workaround. Solution is behavioral changes. Everybody is saying this. So Indore has given an example that how you can basically achieve a success by the behavioral change, whether it is a bulk waste generator or an RWA or event, anybody. So few more things which we need to add, as Indore is doing it very well. One is the data analysis, impact analysis by using the technology. Third, reward and punishment thing. And now we have recently launched a new innovative program called Green Currency. If we do not recognize good work, people will not get inspiration. To encourage them, Swaha has introduced a new concept of green currency. The more they have zero waste event, the more is the level of segregation of the waste at their home front or institution level. The more they are using sustainable options and choices, they are getting more points, and they can redeem it to the currency at the various level. And we have basically engaged various kind of our commercial businesses, houses and hospitality partners, where they can redeem it actually. So the effort has to be starting from the cultural value restoration. Secondly, whatever you are doing and performing, it has to be rewarded. Otherwise, it is not going to sustain. It will become an event and it will finish. But if you want that it should become a success story or a kind of an icon or a kind of a culture, then it has to be rewarded in that manner. So Indore is a perfect example of very good high-tech technology, a great sync of administrative will and political will, and third thing, the cooperative and the continuous contribution of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. And just to be aware of the time, we have Aman here helping us with timekeeping, and he's already been flagging a time up sign for us. So if you could for the next round, let's keep it very brief, and I would request to share very brief reflections just for a minute. So very quickly, Shobha, my question is that how do you ensure regulatory compliance to track performance and integrate social inclusion framework? So how do you, ensure social equity while we are talking about food waste systems?
Yeah, actually, we are in a good time, I would say, where ESG is coming as a big hammer, and I hope there is no greenwashing around that. But it has a good framework to report around the 3 layers of environment, social, and governance. So it quite well encapsulates leadership coming from governance and signing up with the right policies they want for their organizations or cities. The environment part has to be tracked. There is no choice. You have to be able to look at waste data and analyze emissions reduction, et cetera. Similarly, social parameters also have to be tracked, and trying to see how many jobs are getting created. Are we paying the social compliances for this? Is there a dignified environment, their welfare, their health, everything around social has to be tracked and reported. And only when it is tracked, you understand that there is inclusion part that needs to be part of this entire change that we're talking about. And of course, there is upstream and downstream. There are vendors you will be partnering during this journey. And how do you build SLAs that are aligned to environment and social norms? So therefore, it becomes, again, a very holistic, systemic change that we're bringing. You're not only entity here, there is upstream and the entire ecosystem that can get affected when you bring something positive or do not do something correct. So if we really are building a food waste system, I think, and in combination with the regulatory rigor and the inclusion practices, it should no longer be discussed as a cost. Rather, it should be brought out as a catalyst for transformation, and this has to be towards stewardship around circular economy.
Thank you. Thank you, Shobha. And building on that, and when we are talking about viability, I'll move on to Vandana. How do you ensure a financially sustainable and measurable food rescue operation?
Sorry. Yes, so we had started working on the surplus in the food industry, and so we have been supported by the food industry under their CSR, etc. So that has been our main source of funding, and also philanthropic grants, etc. But going forward, I can only see that what I can suggest is that there are a number of countries which have got a national strategy on food loss and food waste, on reducing food loss and food waste, and we need to have such a strategy. There has to be more robust monitoring and data collection of where and how much food is being food is surplus and is being wasted, and then with more visibility on which stakeholders, where is food being wasted, there will be a lot more burden on those stakeholders to monitor that and make sure that that food doesn't get wasted. And I feel a lot more funding also will then be unlocked to make sure that surplus is utilized in feeding people.
Thanks, Vandana. That's an important point on if you monitor and make those numbers visible, there would be more willingness to donate for this and support these initiatives. Moving to Sumana, if you could share your quick reflections on what ways Gaia collaborated with city-level waste initiatives to promote sustainable food waste management.
Yeah, so I think, so one of our, in the last few years, we've had one of our members in Indonesia actually work with the government. So Indonesia recently, last year, set targets on food loss, food waste at the national level. So our members have been part of that conversation. So one is, of course, pushing for those policy changes, helping the government figure out a strategy. So that is obviously ongoing, not something you do in a very short term. But they've also been implementing on the ground in cities, specifically Surakarta, where they've actually developed several models which are very local, context specific. So they've got the storefront where people can come and leave excess food. And so it's very targeted, very short term, because things which are going to be perishable and you cannot keep for too long. So targeting high footfall area, maybe a mosque or a bazaar or somewhere where people are going to be there in high numbers. Then they also developed, this was especially during COVID, so you could maintain distance and so on. Then, larger events where there's extra food, they've set up a system to divert that and ensure it reaches vulnerable groups. So a couple of different models that they're testing and looking at and figuring out now how to scale that up. So similarly in Hong Kong, one of our members has been looking at moving produce at the end of the day to vulnerable groups. But it also goes back to some of the points the others were making. A lot of them are now looking at the challenges of this is on how your liability works out. So these are questions that they're now struggling with and trying to figure out. But it's been a process, and hopefully we'll be able to scale it up further.
Thank you, Sumanna. So before we open the discussion for questions, my last question is to Vidvata. So we spoke about diverse, actors here, and specifically going to, equity. How do you integrate it within your framework, while you're looking for initiatives to support? How has GMH integrated equity while implementing food waste?
That's a very interesting and a very difficult question to ask. So, equity is one of our organizational values. So, everything that we do, all the projects that we support, do have an equity lens inbuilt into them. How this pans out is, of course, different in different contexts. We are working in the waste space specifically with Gaia, of course, on the environmental justice frameworks and principles. So we do try to bring that in as far as possible within the projects and ensure that our projects incorporate various, so we ensure that all projects that we take also incorporate learnings from other projects or build upon other projects. This is also from a consideration that from an equity perspective, some of our partners are very small. How do partners like Gaia, for example, which are bigger networks, or Global Food Banking Network, for example, how do these bigger partners then use the frameworks that they have developed to support the smaller organizations who are working at the local level to basically integrate equity principles? That's one way of doing it. We're also, another angle for an equity perspective is to ensure that there's a lot, capacity building is another lever. We understand that food waste management is a difficult challenge for city governments. So how do we as a philanthropic network with our civil society partners provide city governments with equitable support so that we don't expect everyone to be at the same standard. Every city government is at a different level. But how do our partners and we support them in that journey? I think that's one of the lenses that we apply.
Thank you, Vidwat. And I must acknowledge that it was a tough question, and everybody is grappling to answer that. And a point well taken on, importance of cross-learning amongst your partners, and as well as building capacity and learning through the journey. I would like to, request to close this session because we're running late for lunch. And on that note, thank you so much for all of you. This has been a very engaging discussion. Over to you, Mimansha.
Thank you to all the panelists for such an insightful discussion. I request Mr. Thakkar and all the panelists to come forward for a group photograph.